even on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you're somebody that wants everything done easy, if you're somebody who's like, why am I spending this much on this? Why am I not able to save the money I feel like I need to be able to save? Well, that's where Monarch can come in handy. They can just tell you certain things that maybe you're spending a little bit more on that you want to be, or you might be using subscriptions that frankly you shouldn't even be paying for anymore. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Want to welcome you all back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morisuti, and joining me today is my guest co-host, Frank Sinishi, who many of you know and friend of the show here. And also want to say thank you to everybody who is an everyday. If you've been keeping with us all summer long, we do appreciate it, because I know some people are on vacation, and I know some people says I still listening even though I'm away. I'm like, man, just get a vacation, people. But I appreciate it. Appreciate the loyalty. We appreciate everybody that's making us their first listen to. If this is your first listen of the day, we do appreciate it. And so Mike and I haven't gotten to this yet. I know it was something we were eventually going to talk about. I figured there's no better time than now, because there's not really anything else to talk about. But Kyle Dubas has taken some time to discuss kind of how his tenure in Toronto has gone. We made a podcast appearance on the Cam and Strick podcast. For you who don't know, it's former NHLer Cam Jansen and a St. Louis Blues reporter, Andy Strickland. They've had some pretty good guests on, and obviously getting Kyle Dubas in the offseason, that's a pretty good get for them. And, there's been a lot of reflecting back, which, in some ways I know a lot of people don't like reflecting back on things because it just opens up old wounds. We do that all the time here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, so go figure, we're going to do that today. But I'm never surprised with Kyle Dubas. He's always been a very candid, open person. He's never really ever held things back in terms of things he said. So they obviously asked him a couple of things, and we'll start with one that I've heard before, but he kind of really went into a full picture. And looking back on what his biggest regret was during his time with the Leafs, can you take a guess, Frank, what maybe he thought the biggest regret was during his Leafs tenure?
It's not fair. I read it. It was the trade of March. So,
Frank cheated.
I'm not gonna pretend.
Okay, so for those of you that haven't listened, or even there's been a few articles too on it. He said it was the Mason Marchment trade. Right? We know Mason Marchment straight up for Dennis Malgin back in February 2020. Obviously, that trade did not work out for the Leafs. We know that they took a gamble on going for a guy who was playing NHL minutes, was seen as a more dependable everyday player versus Mason Marchment, who had been struggling with injuries. The development curve maybe wasn't going the way the Leafs had expected it. Well, unfortunately, once he got traded to Florida, it all turned. And Dennis Malgin turned out not really working out great for the Leafs, and Mason Marchment has gone on to be a key contributor when he was with Florida, then eventually signing in Dallas, where he continues to be a key contributor, and now he will be hoping to kind of do the same with Seattle. Got traded more so because they need to shed salary than him actually not being a good player. And obviously that's one there where I can understand the regret. But at the same time, these are the risks that I think GMs make, Frank, right? When you make those trades, it can work, it can backfire easily, but you have to have conviction in the trades you make.
I'm wondering if he made a subliminal message. He put out a subliminal message, and that message would have been he traded a big, tough player for a little offensive threat. Was he basically suggesting that maybe that's just the top of the totem pole of his regrets? And I would think, and I think when you talk to Leafs today, maybe not back then, there were a few people like myself who felt that the Leafs were too in love with short, small, talented players. Malgin's not a big guy. He wasn't a big guy. He's like 5'8", 5'9", very quick. You referred to him as dependable. That's great. Experienced NHL forward, absolutely. But Marchment was something they had very little of. And so I regretted that trade from the moment he did it, because Marchment offered something that the team didn't have much of. And so if it became a need, there it was available to them, right? I think, to me, that was a bit of a subliminal message by Dubas, suggesting that maybe he did concentrate too much on size and talent, as opposed to, the kind of, put it this way. He traded away the kind of guy that for years some of us said Leafs were short on and needed more of. And as time marched on, it became more and more clear that was true, that the Leafs lacked the ability not to fight, but to hold their own, in the corners, around the glass and the borders.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's where we're seeing the change with this Leafs team, right? The emphasis isn't just on getting skill. It's about getting those intangibles as well. You look at the Dakota Joshua trade, right? He's not.
Look who they're letting go. Look who they're letting go, David. The guys that they drafted back the years, they're not re-signing the 5'8", 5'9" speedy guys, right?
Look at the guys they're drafted now. It's clear the mandate of where they want to go and what they project to be better off in terms of development and stuff too. So I'm not surprised on that. And and here's the other thing too. I mean, when you look at how this team was built too, right? Like, this team was built with the timeline got accelerated, right? They made the playoffs. It's like, okay, now we need to be pushing ourselves to compete, right? And the only way to compete is if you're making additions every year. But the lack of what's the word I'm looking for here? The lack of flexibility, because they did have a lot of the salary tied up to those players, and even Kyle Dubas brought that up. The salary cap going flat is what hurt them, right? They expected the cap going up. They didn't expect a pandemic. It's pretty fair, I would say, but at the same time, it kind of goes to show, I think, where current management has changed the philosophy in a lot of ways.
Well, I don't know if that's to me, that's more of an excuse than it is an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
He spent money he didn't have. He didn't know he had. He spent money he didn't know he had. You can say that the cap didn't go up, but we all knew at the time that the cap might not go up, in spite of COVID. There was talk before COVID that the cap was not going to go up that quick. A lot of people who were against, or who commented against, the kind of contracts they were sending, they're signing Matthews and Marner and company. A lot of people were saying, before COVID, that they can't afford to do that, and